Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. My conversation this week is with Rob Brown, the founder of Truest Fan Coaching and the author of Truest Fan: Live, Love, and Lead with Purpose and Impact. Rob helps top financial advisors achieve success through purpose-focused strategies and hosts the Purpose-Focused Advisor podcast. Now, Rob and I spoke about how financial advisors can differentiate themselves in an increasingly standardized industry. As technology continues to streamline many aspects of financial planning, advisors risk becoming what Rob calls human robo-advisors by relying too heavily on standardized processes and losing the personal touch that makes them unique. So in our conversation, Rob shares his powerful concept of developing a signature solution, which is a unique branded process that uses the advisor's own language to talk about their process and approach rather than generic industry terminology that shows up on 9 out of 10 advisors' websites. He explains how this approach has helped his clients stand out in the marketplace, and I loved the examples that he shared of how advisors have implemented their signature solutions into their marketing efforts. So in this conversation, Rob emphasized that being a financial advisor is truly a noble cause and that every advisor brings something unique to their clients, whether they realize that yet or not. His practical approach to helping advisors articulate their value propositions is something that any financial professional can implement to strengthen their brand and client relationships. So this was a great conversation with Rob. Let's dive in. Rob, thanks so much for joining me on the Finance Marketing Podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you, Hillary.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about a very interesting topic today, but I would love to start if you would just tell us a little bit about who you are and what your background is and what it is that you do now.
Okay, that's dangerous. I've been at this a long time, so I could tell a long story. But I guess maybe the best way to sum it up is I actually started out in the financial advice space as a financial advisor. I had my own practice for 25 years. During that span, I was also an executive with an investment firm where I herded cats. I said grace over about 250 other advisors. And in doing that, I fell in love with being a coach and mentor to advisors. So that led me to creating Truest Fan Coaching, which is what I spend all of my working time on these days, which is helping financial advisors become better versions of themselves in both their businesses and in their lives.
Can you tell us a little bit about your firm before you essentially retired from your firm and transitioned mostly to Truest Fan?
Yeah, so I had a team. We had, there were two of us who were partners, and then we had, depending on the season, 2 or 3 other team members who worked with us. We were financial planners first, so we really believed in the financial planning process. And for some younger advisors today, that almost seems like an automatic, but back then, not everybody was doing financial planning. And then we also ran our own equity portfolios. We loved running money, managing our own money. And so we had a core portfolio that we ran. And then up against that, we used some other tools or resources if we needed fixed income or other asset classes. So we were a financial planning firm with an investment focus, very highly focused on client service. That's probably our hallmark, was that we were known for being loved by our clients, and that was a good place to be.
Well, one thing that you said, a while back, having the financial planning service at the forefront was a differentiator. And today it's not as much of a different differentiator. Like you said, it's kind of table stakes at this point for a lot of younger advisors. So, what are the challenges for younger advisors now to try to stand out when they are offering similar services?
Right. Well, a couple of things, and one is I'm on a little bit of a rant these days in talking with advisors or talking about advisors, because I believe that because financial planning and some of the investment processes have become so streamlined because of the technology that's out there, too many advisors, and I think this is true for younger advisors in particular, but maybe even older advisors too, are becoming what I call human robo-advisors, because they're just doing the same thing over and over for their clients using the technology that they have, their tech stack, to deliver that plan and that portfolio to their clients. And they're not differentiating themselves at all. And they're running the risk of being that robo-advisor who doesn't need to have a human involved. So I'm really cautious about that. I really want advisors who are thinking about their businesses and differentiating themselves and really delivering high impact communication and service to their clients to be intentional and authentic about it, and use the tools as tools, not as a replacement for delivering advice and service and taking care of the people that they care about.
Mm. Well, I think that you and I both intuitively know that, you know, human advisors can't be replaced by tools, and clients benefit from advisors who don't replace themselves with tools. But can you put words to kind of why that is, and what the true value is for clients who are working with their advisors to have an advisor who is not just doing the same thing day in, day out?
Yeah, well, I think it just comes down to the fact that clients want somebody who truly knows their story and what
Mm,
they're about and what it is they really want, and can put that in the perspective of the tool that they use to help facilitate the plan. Because the plan isn't just solving for numbers, it's solving to help people accomplish things that are really important to them. And well, you could say,
mm,
well, Rob, there's just, three or four things that clients want to do. They want to, plan for their kids' college education. They want to do retirement planning. They want to do estate planning. And yeah, that's true. But, in all the years I was a financial advisor, there were never two retirement plans that were exactly the same, because the idea of, I want to retire and never run out of money can mean different things to different people. Never run out of money and I want to keep growing my wealth, or I never run out of money meaning it's okay if I have $10 left at the end and my kids get nothing.
mm,
So I think that conversation, that communication, that understanding, that empathy, that story that the advisor who is really in tune with a client can develop and understand, just makes going to a review meeting something that the client looks forward to. And it's
mhm.
not a dentist appointment where they have to go in, once a quarter or once every 6 months. They go, I can't wait to go in to meet my advisor because we're going to talk about exciting things. We're going to talk about my life and my plans for
Mm,
my kids, for my retirement, for the trips I want to take and the things that I want to do. And I think are the causes that I care about. So I think that's really
right.
important.
Right. Well, and the clients are humans too, making human decisions every day, right? You can put together a perfect plan, and I've heard so many advisors talk about this. I put together this perfect plan, and then my clients went out and they bought a new car, and now they have a $45,000 car loan, and so we have to rework the plan and things like that. And I think just having a human there who can, you know, talk you through all of those daily or monthly or yearly changes that you're going to make to your plan, I think is also so invaluable.
Yeah. And some of those are changes that you make or a client makes because they want to. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes those changes happen to them. So you've got to be able to react and adjust to those as well. But
Mm-hmm.
also to be able to say to a client, you didn't tell me that you were going to be buying this $45,000 car. And you
Mm-hmm.
realize that if you had told me there was there's some things I could have done differently to make that more affordable, because we could have saved some taxes or done something. And having that conversation be part of the interaction, I think, is so important as well.
Well, let's talk about what you do to help the advisors that you coach stand out. What are some things that you work on with them?
So the number one thing that I work on is what I call a signature solution. You know, any advisor can go to the FPA website and, pull out the 5 steps or the 6 steps of a financial plan, gather information, put a plan together, monitor it, and all that kind of stuff. Anybody can do that. And even if you're really good at that, it can sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that no two advisors do business exactly the same way, particularly or even necessarily with each one of their clients. So I want them to develop a signature solution the way that they help their clients go from point A, where they are when they first meet them, maybe scattered or uncertain or with lots of questions, to a point B, which is, I've got my plan together. I know this is going to keep me on track as long as we keep managing that. And I want them to be able to list the stages and the steps of that signature solution from point A to point B in the language that they use with their clients. So it is the advisor speak, not the FPA speak.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're able to do that, when you're able to use your own language, it becomes much more consistent. It becomes much more repeatable, which means you're more referable and understandable and a lot of different things. So when you have that signature solution, it's a great tool for serving that client and really standing out, even if you're using a lot of the same tools, because you're doing it in your own vernacular, your own language. And then that can spill out into the way that you market and put yourself out there to other people, because they say, hey, I've never met somebody who said that these are the steps that they go to help me get from where I am when I meet them to solving my problems, to understanding my stories, to taking me to a point where I have a solution, I have a long-term plan.
I think this is so powerful. And, as a copywriter for financial advisors, I have rewritten so many websites with that generic FPA kind of process language. And so I just love that this is something that you help advisors kind of dial in for themselves. Are you able to give us any examples from, one or two advisors that you've coached of how they've applied that to their business and the way that they talk about it?
Yeah. So the first one that pops out to mind is a client of mine, Matt, who, since I've begun working with him, has gone from about $100 million under management to almost 700 million at the top level of the BD that he's associated with. And a big reason he says for that is because he has that process and it's consistent. And as I was getting to know Matt and to understand his process with his clients, one of the words that he always used was clarity. So not an uncommon word, but he said, my process is a roadmap to financial clarity. And then he named his steps for, the first things that he does when somebody comes in, and specifically tied that to the idea of we're working our way towards financial clarity. And so he has a 3-stage, 9-step process, and each piece of language for each one of those steps is the way that he talks and his team talks to their clients about what they're trying to help their clients accomplish. And so that's a real simple idea, just kind of playing off one word. I'm thinking of another client, Ron, who calls his system, and now I'm going to lose the name because I'm trying to think too hard about it. But he says my clients are building a retirement reality of their dreams. And so he has a whole deep way of talking about working towards retirement. And he focuses specifically on retirement planning. So he's taking that language and building it into the stages and steps of his process. And it's most of the signature solutions or the roadmaps that I help clients build are kind of fall into that 3-stage, 9-step process where there is, it's where it's not different from maybe the FPAs. There is that beginning stage of getting things together, and that there's that middle stage of creating the plan, and then there's the ongoing stage of monitoring, but staying in touch and naming the things that are parts of those stages. That, for example, I think this is in Matt's plan or his signature solution is he does something that he calls rapid response service. Mm-hmm. So there's an element of that last stage once somebody's a client is ongoing of this is how I am proactive with you, but I also want you to know that I'm always there. We're always there if something comes up in between our calls and conversations, which he calls rapid response service. So he names one of his steps, rapid response service. And so it's just a little bit of a different way of framing that.
I think that's so smart because, I mean, you said it, it's not like you need to come up with this unique service. I mean, what you're doing is the same, right? You can't really reinvent the wheel when it comes to financial planning, but the way that you brand it and the way that you name it has so much power, I think, to resonate with clients because clients want clarity. So of course that would resonate with the clients who want clarity. So yeah, I really love that. Did you have anything you wanted to add on to that?
So I guess the other point I would add is to me, when it comes to the signature solution, the most important nomenclature is the name for your overall process. So you're naming your process. So when a client or a prospective client comes to you and says, I need your help, and they tell you what they're looking for, you can say, that's awesome because I have a roadmap to financial clarity, and that's exactly what you need to be able to accomplish your goals. So you're selling this consultative, intangible thing that doesn't say, I'm going to sell you the financial planning software that I'm going to use and the portfolio management process. I've got a process that we call this. This is what we do. And that's extremely important. And then the second two pieces that are important are what you name point A and what you name point B, because you want people to think about, this is how I feel when I'm meeting you right now, and I realize that I need help, and I feel confused, scattered, uncertain. I have too many questions. And again, it's in the language that the advisor uses and hears clients use. And then that takes you to point B, financial clarity or life clarity. There's different ways that you could name that. But then, and then everything in between is still important, but because you have the name for the process and you have the starting point and the ending point, you have so much that you can work from to help people picture you as someone who is going to help them answer their biggest questions, achieve their biggest and most important goals, overcome their biggest obstacles, because you have this unique system that you use to help me or help that client get to where they want to be.
So I can clearly picture, how this might show up on a services page or on a website or, our process page or something like that. Where else do you have your advisors kind of build this into their marketing or their operations, or where else can they kind of use this to differentiate themselves?
Yeah, I've had a lot of advisors use in a lot of different ways. The Matt who I was talking about actually has it built into the front page of his website. So when you visit his website and you're thinking about hiring Matt and his team, it shows you that process. And to the point of even saying, this is our meeting process, and being able to schedule right into that process. Another place and he actually has a video that walks through it too. So he's probably the best user of it that I work with. But another great place that almost all my clients work with it is, and it might sound hokey, but they have a laminated card that they keep on their desk or a laminated piece of paper, which is
Mm.
their signature solution. And so
Mm.
they push their computer aside, especially when they're first meeting with somebody, saying, "Hey, you know, I hear what you are trying to accomplish. Let me show you how I will do that." And they can just
Mm.
walk through it. So it's another great place to use it. I've had advisors create marketing Facebook videos with it. So as they're doing Facebook advertising, as an example, they'll walk somebody through their signature solution through a video, and then obviously the call to action at the end is, "Hey, come spend some time with me, and I'll show you how to put this to play in your work."
Mm.
So I've seen in videos, I've seen in these laminated cards, I see on websites, it goes in flip charts or seminars. So I mean, if you say, "Well, gosh, I don't know what to do a seminar on. I want to do a seminar," well, do a seminar on your signature solution. Show your
Yeah.
audience how you will help them, and you can name the problem.
Hmm. I love this. I mean, it sounds like it can become such a foundational piece of who you are and who your brand is. I can imagine it being really great for a LinkedIn profile and kind of streamlining a LinkedIn profile and using, part of it in your headline and in your experience section even. So, what would you say when advisors come to you, say their biggest problem is? One example of an advisor who I was rewriting a website for, this was a few years ago. He came to me and I was trying to get to the heart of what made him different. And he said, "I don't think there really is anything that differentiates me." He said, "I think what I do is about the same as everybody else." And I'm wondering, what would your response be to an advisor like that?
Oh, that turns my stomach. I don't know anywhere to say it,
Mm-hmm.
because I just don't believe that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with too many advisors over too long a period of time for anybody to believe that they're just like everybody else. They just haven't stopped to really think about what and this is, I spend a lot of time with this with my clients and my coaching, understand what their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, being a financial advisor is a noble cause. You are doing so much good in the world if you take what you do seriously. And because you are, as a person, are different than everybody else, and every client that you run into has different needs or different variations on the same need. It's just full of uniqueness, and you just need to pull that out. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really one of those questions that makes the hair
Mm-hmm.
on the back of my neck stand up when I hear an advisor say that, because they're taking themselves and what they do for granted.
Mm. Hmm. It was a conversation too that, I mean, this happened years ago and it still sticks with me because I agree. It was almost heartbreaking to hear that, and it really, I think, does come down to just spending some time pausing, reflecting, thinking about the value that you truly do add to your clients and why they would prefer working with you than anyone else. So I really appreciate that response
Yeah,
that
and
you
it's
gave.
also replaying what you're saying, because that's where the signature solution comes from. Is you're really
Mhm.
replaying what you're saying in the
Mhm.
conversations that you have with your clients. And
Mhm.
the truth is that most advisors are just keeping that knowledge, that description, in between their ears. So
Mhm.
they're probably saying things that are very unique and very different in the way that they approach it. It's just they've never taken the time to document it and use it in a way that they can leverage it to grow their business. And the other place that my clients use their signature solution is when they're having review meetings with their clients. They pull it out and they
Mm.
remind clients where they are in this journey. And maybe they have to
Mhm.
say, well, because of this change that's happened in your life, we've got to go back and
Mhm.
and and redo a few things that we've done to get back on track towards point B, because we got off track. So
Right.
it's just an incredible tool for so many reasons. And if you did it for no other reason than to get real clear on who you are and what you do and how you
Mm.
serve your clients, it would be worth it.
Mhm. Right. It reminds me of that phrase, it you can't read the label from inside the jar. And I think that's kind of
Love
what
it.
it comes down to. It's hard to know how you're different from other people when you're not in the room with all the other people that you're different from, right? So, would you say that an advisor probably needs to be working with clients for a couple years, in order to be ready for this process and in order to know what kind of language that they're using? Or is this something that brand new advisors can start to do?
I think it's harder for a newer advisor, but and I guess in some ways it depends on why the advisor got into the business in the first place. Because
Mhm.
sometimes that reason that you got into the business because of some fascination that you have for helping people solve financial problems could create the basis for a great signature
Mm,
solution that you would then maybe iterate over time as you actually get some experience and see what it's like in the trenches. But so I don't think
mhm,
it's something that is exclusive to people with several years of experience or more. Probably gets a little easier, but
mhm.
there would be no reason not to create something that really tells your story.
Mm. Yeah, I love that word that you just used, iterate. That's a word that I use all the time. And I think that's important to remember too, is that your signature solution, it may change a little bit over time as you learn more about yourself and your clients and how you help them, and you just kind of gain more clarity. And it may not either, but I think that it's okay to know that, if I realize something new about my clients or the way that I do something, I can always tweak my signature solution that I have.
Oh, absolutely. I can think of a perfect example of a client that I worked with for a number of years who wasn't doing a lot of work in the area of philanthropic planning. And really, because of the growth of his business and the type of client that he was working with, needed to spend more time with them on their philanthropy, on their gifting plans. And so that required an adjustment to his signature solution to specifically spell that out, because he
Mm,
felt it was important to be able to say to a prospective client, hey, this is something else that we can do as we go on this journey from point A to point B. And also, as he was doing his reviews and meetings with clients who had not done that type of planning, he was able to say, hey, he wouldn't use these words because my signature solution. Well, it's changed because now I'm doing this different thing and I want you to be aware of it. And so those
mm,
clients aren't going to then go to another advisor because they think that the current advisor doesn't do the thing that he actually does. So
right.
that's, I think, the best example that I can think of
Mm.
changing it.
Okay, yeah, and I love that too that he let current clients know that, because you can't just assume that your current clients are going to come and ask you for something, right? They very well could just go look for somebody else that they think does it, and you don't want that to happen.
Yeah, so I talked about that cringeworthy statement of I'm not unique. Another
Mm,
cringeworthy statement that I hear sometimes from advisors is I lost that client
mm,
because they told me that they wanted to do something that they didn't think that I do, and another
mm,
advisor did it, but in truth, they really did it. And
mm.
that means you're not doing a good job of telling your story and reminding your clients over and over again of how you can serve them and help them.
Right, right. Well, Rob, I think this has been just a really insightful conversation about how advisors can differentiate themselves in I'm going to say simple way, maybe not an easy way, but when it comes down to it, it's a simple tweak almost that you can make that will revolutionize your whole process and the way that you market yourself and things like that. Is there anything else that I maybe haven't asked you yet or that we haven't touched on that you think is pertinent to this conversation?
No, I don't think so. Or maybe just suggest to the audience, do you have a unique way to tell your unique story? And if you
Mm,
can't say a resounding yes,
mm,
then it's time to step back and reevaluate the way that you're creating your brand, the way that you're telling
mm.
your story, because that's just so important to your clients, to your future clients, and just to really making sure that you're really living out the purpose that you have for being a financial advisor in the first place.
I love that. And just to kind of piggyback on that, I love this idea that, if you answer with no, I'm not different from other advisors, or I don't know how I'm different from other advisors, don't accept that answer. That just means it's time to do a little reflection and
Yeah.
a little work to find what your answer is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And well, we talked about that already, but the work is just so important. You just don't take yourself for granted.
Yeah. Well, Rob, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
So I'm easy to connect with on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. I try to share some ideas around the signature solution there from time to time. But you can also go to truestfan.com/scorecard, where you can get a tool, a business optimization tool that I use that can actually be used as a starter point for creating your signature solution, because it causes you to answer some important questions about your business.
I love that. I've seen your scorecard. It's a great, great resource. I will link to the scorecard and your LinkedIn profile and your website all in the show notes. And I just want to say thank you so much, Rob, for joining me today and sharing all of your thoughts. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Hillary. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.